Hi there, and we're all over central London in this video, going to 8 different alleyways around London with a historical background. So we're going to start over in the city, and we're going to start in a place called Bengal Court over in EC3. So stick with us, have we got some things to show you, including the history of printing over at Fleet Street right near the end. So stay watching for that. Okay, here comes the first one. This is Bengal Court. So Bengal Court is the modern name for an ancient alley, and there are 2 narrow gaps in the walls which open up to a larger space that was once filled with shops and warehouses, but today lined with offices, as you can see as we open up. And that shows you how narrow it is. You can't get more than 2 people, sorry, more than 1 person even, going down there. But then as you go through, the exact origins of the alley are lost in the midst of time. The area's long been a marketplace for London. Now it sits within the London ward of Longbourn, which suggests a marketplace where goods were laid out on long boards and trestles, and as you can see as you go right the way through, it really does open up. Now, running parallel, we also have Castle Court, which was seen first in the maps of 1795, and it shows up clearly in a map of 1814 of the Great Cornhill Fire, which destroyed all the buildings in Castle Court, but spared the local pub. And as you can see, a bit of history on the floor here. Once again, this goes all the way through, but the alley is most notable for the pub, which has been on the location since 1748, and is named the George and Vulture, which you're going to see in just a couple of seconds. Now this is the George and Vulture here in yellow on the right, and it's quite interesting because everyone claims that every famous person is a regular customer of a pub, but this is likely because it's mentioned at least 20 times in the Pickwick Papers by Charles Dickens, so it's probably reckoned, and it's quite safe to say, that he probably drank in there quite regularly. Now the fantastic thing about these little alleyways is they're all sort of interconnected, which is fantastic if you really want to go and have a search. But you just need to find them and then off you go. But so many people go past them, and it's incredible how many people walk through without realising their history. So there you go. So we've just gone through Castle Court, and if you look back, there you go, that's the coat of arms of the pub here, and it also links up with St Michael's Alley. Now, our next place, known locally as the Jam Pod, is this, the Jamaica Wine House. And this is extremely famous because it's in the heart of London's financial district, but it was the first coffee house in London and was visited by the English diarist Samuel Pepys in 1660. Yes, it's that old. Now this place also has historic links to the sugar trade of the West Indies and the Ottoman Empire as well, and there is a plaque on the wall which I couldn't find, and it reads, "Here stood the first London coffee house at the sign of Pascora Rosé's Head, 1652. Right, now we move on to another part of London, over near the city still, over near Liverpool Street, but this is Artillery Lane. So what you can see here is the outside of the building which is listed. So to make sure they've maintained it but carry on building behind it, they've left this outer facade. So you've got sort of an inner building all kept with an outer facade kept for historic purposes. Right, and then you go down the road and you've got houses which look like they date back from the 1700s. Now here, to give you an idea, we're right by Spitalfields Market, so if you're ever in Spitalfields, you want to head down here, not just to look at these, and these have been used in many different film settings, and you can probably see why, because the original architecture of the office fronts or the shop fronts here lend really good to historical documentaries and also historical programs. But then you have the beautiful Artillery Lane, which we're going to show you in just one second, which itself is a little treasure trove to come and find. Once again, this is by Spitalfields, but also very, very close to Liverpool Street Station. And when you go down here, you have a little array of shops and also little places to eat as well. So interesting enough, I said we're right by Spitalfields, and funnily enough, this looks far older than it actually is. Now, this avenue here follows an ancient line that runs along the southern boundary of the old St Mary Spittal Priory and the northern side of the woodland pastures. Now, St Mary Spittal was the site of the largest infirmary in medieval London, with a total of 180 beds, and the name itself, Spittal, is an archaic slang form of hospital. Closed down by the dissolution of the monasteries, the southern fields were leased in 1537 to the Guild of the Artillery of longbows, crossbows and handguns for 297 years, and it's from that use that the area gained its name of the artillery. Those of you that are regular watchers will know I always say when you're in London, look up, because there you go. If you don't look up, you don't see these old signs showing that it was once upon a time the King's Stores. Anyway, these people didn't keep it for that long, and in 1682, two people bought artillery ground for £5,700 with a licence to build new houses, and they began to develop the area in association with two city merchants, Nicholas Barban and John Parsons. Now, it's they who laid out the narrow warren of streets that exists today and delight so many visitors and tourists with a whole maze-like cluster of old buildings and hipster fashionable shops. To be quite honest, it's just worth coming down here, having a look in the windows of the shops and just feel like you're stepping back through history, especially with some of the street furniture, some of the lampposts, etc. that they've got down here as well. It's interesting because at one time Artillery Passage was known as Smock Alley, but when it changed its name to the current name of Artillery Passage, a bit unclear. Now, what's brilliant is that these buildings that give the narrow passage are mainly narrow-fronted Georgian houses with different roofs and retail uses on the ground floor. Now, they're not set back from the street, which therefore give that sort of very close feeling to it. But what adds to the charm of the alley is the details that remain here, as you've just seen, such as the original panelled front doors in places. You've also got shutters and various types of ironwork as well. Brilliant. So you're right by Spitalfields Liverpool Street Station, nice and easy to get to. That's Artillery Passage. Right, let's go to our next place, which is also in the City of London. So next we move on to Canon Alley, and that's Canon with one N in the middle. And the reason why? It's right by this, St Paul's Cathedral. Now, as you can see, this is quite a modern area, and actually Canon Alley merges into the Queen's Head Passage, which was first mentioned in 1799 in various types of literature and is probably named after a pub. What gives you an absolute incredible view, though, is those views of St Paul's Cathedral. Now, what's absolutely incredible is you walk a couple of seconds away and you're here, right in the middle of Paternoster Square. Now, all of this area was completely damaged during the Blitz, which is why it's got this sort of modern feel to it. So you've got a mixture of old and new, especially with St Paul's Cathedral looking down on you. So you get a great vantage point if you want to see the great dome of St Paul's Cathedral or behind the modern office buildings. Now, as you can see, we came during the summer, so we've got some morphs there, but quite often during the summer as well, they set out a series of deck chairs so you can watch the latest sporting events. And if I remember rightly, when we were here, we actually had Wimbledon on at the time, so that really does give you an idea of when we came down to this area and filmed it. Now, as you can see, during beautiful times, they've got all the huts set up so you can get street food and drinks, but also you've got different bars and also restaurants to the side, as well as supermarkets. If you just fancy going to a supermarket, grabbing a sandwich, and then just sitting on a seat here and watching the world go by, you can do. Once again, what a fantastic vantage point for St Paul's Cathedral, and I actually think this is a great place to either start your tour of St Paul's Cathedral and get the vibes for it before you go in, or just to look back on it and reminisce after you've been into St Paul's, because it's literally right on your doorstep. By the way, if St Paul's Cathedral is something you fancy doing, I'll put a link to our video that we did on St Paul's Cathedral up in the top right hand corner for you. For our next one, we move out of the city and we head down towards the West End. But before we get there, we get to the Jewellery Centre of Hatton Garden, because just off Hatton Garden, near all of the jewellers and all of the diamond traders here in central London, which is well worth a visit on its own, just for a walk up and down the street to see all of the bling in the window. But we come to this next place called Ely Court. Now, the name Ely is a reference to the Bishop of Ely, who was a major landowner in the area in the 16th century. Now, the historic alley that you were about to go down, and there you go, you've got it all signposted there, runs pretty much along the line of the Bishop's Cloister, which stood alongside St Eldred's Chapel, which can still be visited today. However, it first appears on the map in the late 18th century. Now, the pub you're going to see as we go down here, as well advertised as you can see, was originally built in 1546 for his staff, although the actual building itself is far more recent. However, that doesn't mean it's not worth visiting, because it features in various posts about London. You'll also see great pictures of it, and there you go. If you're coming down here, probably want to get a selfie or two. Yeah, the Old Mitre pub. Fantastic. And like so many other places in London, once you get down the other end of the alley and it opens up, you never know what you're going to find. And all of a sudden, you find an amazing street just like this, with all of the flowers and all of the baskets hanging off, which is just off of Holborn Circus. But to be quite honest, if you didn't come down the alleyway, you'd probably never see it. And just look at some of the frontages here. These are all probably used as offices these days. And then you've got Holborn Circus over there, but you wouldn't really notice it. Okay, into our next place. It's Magpie Alley, which is just off Fleet Street, and this tells the story of printing here in the UK. So, if you weren't aware, Fleet Street, which is literally just around the corner from Magpie Alley, which is where we are now, was the home of the printing press, up until everything moved to Wapping in the late 1980s, early 1990s. And what these tiles here, which are all printed, celebrates the history of printing on Fleet Street. So if you fancy coming down here and learning about printing, and believe you me, when I came down, there were loads of school parties and also university parties being shown these. And not only have you got sort of sketches, but you've also got pictures as well put into the tiles. So it really does go into detail of the remarkable history of printing here in Fleet Street, which is another one of London's premier places to come and visit if you're coming down here. Now, interestingly, as I said, everything has moved out of Fleet Street and you've got lots of empty buildings, but a lot of them are listed. So when you look at some of the buildings down here which haven't been reoccupied, places that used to have the Telegraph and Sunday Telegraph and the Express and the Sunday Express still look like they did when the people moved out and went to Wapping many, many years ago. So as you can see, not only have you got all of the pictures there, but you've got lots and lots of writing giving you detail as well. Now, Fleet Street is also one of those amazing streets because really it links up the City of London over by St Paul's. So if you're walking from St Paul's to the West End, you'll probably go up Fleet Street to get to the Strand, and it brings you up by the Royal Courts of Justice, which we will feature in a future video here on this channel. Because I realised actually, Fleet Street is one of those that we haven't covered, but so many people know it from its old newspaper history in London. So that's 7 secret alleyways and places you need to discover. We have number 8 coming very shortly, and it is Pickering Place, which is over in Mayfair, right at the bottom of St James's, right by St James's Palace. But as you can see, it's slightly tucked away. Now let me tell you more. So as you can see, this was the site of the Texan Embassy back in the 1800s when it broke away from the rest of the United States for a very short period of time. But what's really more interesting is this alleyway leads you to London's smallest public square. Yes, this is the smallest public square in London, and they've managed to fit in a whole load of restaurant tables. How about that? Welcome to Pickering Place. Pickering Place is right next to Berry Brothers and Rudd, and there's been a shop here called that since the 1690s, which is a sort of a wine shop. Now, it's named after William Pickering, the son-in-law of the then owner of Berry Brothers, back when it was a Widow Bourne's coffee shop, another place that was a coffee shop which has since changed. And one more thing this alleyway is famous for is meant to have been the supposed sites of duels. So, I hope we've helped you to discover more great places in London, but the hidden away places that lots of people don't get to see. Anyway, which was your favourite? Do let us know in the comments down below. It'd be really interesting to see. And whilst we're in St James's, I've put St James's Palace, our video on that, up in the top right hand corner for you, so we'll see you in there.